them and to take appropriate corrective action.
When conducting walk-around checks, it's important for the driver to develop a routine so that they don't miss any items. When conducting the checks, wear a high visibility vest or jacket and look out for other vehicles. People being hit or run over by vehicles are one of the main causes of workplace fatalities. As you walk up to the vehicle, check that it is sitting square and not leaning to one side. Begin your walk-around duties by activating your tachograph. Switch on the parking and hazard lights to show that you are operating around the vehicle and that the lights are working. Check that the driver's mirrors are secure and not damaged. Check that wheels are in good condition with no cracks or damage and that they are secure. If wheel nut indicators are in use, check that they are correctly aligned. Is there any damage to the tyres, such as bulges, cracks, cuts or tears? Is there evidence of carcass failure or separated or perished rubber? Are they correctly inflated with appropriate tread depth? Tyres should have sufficient tread and should not be worn to the extent that the tread indicator contacts the road surface. Check tread depth with a simple gauge. The legal minimum tyre tread depth for heavy goods vehicles is 1.6 mm, but tyres should be replaced before this. You should also refer to the manufacturer's handbook for specific information about obtaining best performance from your vehicle. Is the exhaust secure? Continue on and look at the coupling. Is it in good condition? Ensure that the fuel tank cap is securely in place and that the cap seal is in good condition and is not leaking. Walk around the vehicle in one direction and check that all required lights, reflectors and markings are fitted, clean and in good condition. Check that the vehicle bodywork, wings, side and rear guards, curtains and straps for damage. Ensure that body panels are secure and not liable to fall off and create a hazard for other road users, and that the bodywork has no sharp edges. If the vehicle has a tail lift, is it in good condition and operating correctly? Is it safely locked in position for travel? Employers, remember that the tail lift should be thoroughly examined by a competent person once a year. Ensure that the number plates are fitted in the correct position, clean and that the registration is clearly visible. Are loading doors secure and in good condition? Remember, as a driver, you are responsible for the security of your load. If carrying a load, check that it is adequately secured, unlikely to move and that the vehicle is not overloaded. Check the load restraints for damage, wear and tear such as fraying straps, cuts or tears and replace as necessary. Where a trailer is in use, the trailer must display the number of the truck at the rear and the trailer should also display its own registration or marker plate on the near side chassis rail. Check that the landing legs are fully raised and the handle is secured in the correct position and that the fifth wheel is located and locked correctly. Is the air suspension correctly set? Check for moisture in the air tanks. Check that the air and electrical fuses and required connectors are present, fitted correctly and in good condition, including the anti-lock and emergency braking system. There should be no leaks from the air lines, no stretching or chaffing and no general damage or wear on all connections. Ensure that all vehicle access is in good condition, clean and secure, including steps and the catwalk area, and that there is nothing present that could cause you to slip or trip, such as loose load restraints. Good housekeeping is essential. Again, check the door and mirrors on the passenger side. Check the windscreen washer reservoir cap for security. Lift the grille and check the engine fluid levels. Engine fluid levels should be between the minimum and maximum marks. On some vehicles, the oil, coolant and AdBlue levels may be displayed on the dash prior to startup. Look underneath the vehicle for any signs of fluid leaks such as oil or coolant. Check the wipers for wear. Check that the tax and insurance discs are in place and in date. If a transport disc is required, check that this is also valid. Take care when getting up and down from the vehicle, as falls from vehicles are a common occurrence. Use the proper handholds, do not use the steering wheel for support and maintain 3 points of contact with your arms and legs. When getting out of the vehicle, be aware of uneven surfaces and never jump down. Ensure that the seat and steering wheel are set for your comfort, posture and safety and that all controls can be easily reached. Check your driving lights. Check that there is good visibility through all windows and mirrors and that there are no cracks or damage. For example, is your vision obstructed by stickers or pendants? Check that the cab interior is clean and that there are no loose items which could cause you injury if you had to brake in an emergency. Turn on the ignition and check that the steering does not have excessive play and operates freely with the power assistance in operation. Check that the windscreen washer operates, the jets are aimed correctly and that the washer bottle level warning light is not showing. Check that the wipers work correctly and that the mirrors are all correctly aligned and the heater element operates. Do the demister, cab heater, interior lights and horn all operate correctly? Ensure that the speed limiter plaque is displayed and that it is showing the same tyre size as on the vehicle drive axle. Put on your safety belt if fitted and start the engine. Check that all instruments, gauges and mooring devices are operating correctly and following their correct sequence, including the ABS or EBS in-cab warning lights. If any warning lights remain on after startup, report them and don't ignore them. Check that there are no air leaks. Apply the foot brake, release the parking brake and check that there is no pressure drop. Is there an air warning light displayed or an alarm activated? Does the air pressure gauge show insufficient pressure? Is there excessive smoke or noise from the exhaust? Before leaving the depot, check that the steering and brakes are working correctly. Ensure that the service brake operates on both the tractor and trailer and that the brake pedal is free from damage. Check that the trailer brake is fully released. Record and report any defects in accordance with your employer's defect reporting systems. Remember, any safety critical items must be repaired before you drive or the vehicle must be taken out of service. Records of all checks, repairs and services should be kept for the vehicle. Analysis of the records may highlight a pattern or history to the vehicle, reoccurring defects or poor maintenance repair standards. Continue to monitor your vehicle's road worthiness as you drive. Check that the tachograph continues to operate correctly, that the speedometer is working and can be seen from the driving position, and that the vehicle does not exceed the maximum speed stated on the speed limiter plaque. Ensure that the ABS or EBS lights do not remain on after their check sequence is complete.
Some of the common faults detected by the Road Safety Authority vehicle inspectors during roadside checks include braking defects, damaged wheels and tyres, faulty lights, leakages and visible suspension and chassis defects. The majority of these faults could have been found and fixed if the driver had conducted a vehicle walk-around check. The check only takes a few minutes. It ensures that you identify obvious vehicle defects that could affect your safety and the safety of other road users. It ensures that you're not at risk of breakdown or being delayed at a roadside check. It ensures that you can deliver reliable service to your company's customers and that you can get home safely and on time. So do a driver walk-around check to ensure your vehicle is roadworthy before you take it out on the road.
For further information, check out the walk-around check posters produced by the RSA, the Gardaí and the HSA. The RSA's Guide to Keeping Your Commercial Vehicle Roadworthy is available on their website or from your nearest commercial vehicle test centre. Check out these websites for more details.
People falling from vehicles may seem like one of the most preventable workplace accidents. Yet every year, many such accidents occur, and many result in serious injury. Preventing these accidents should be the goal for all employers and their employees. First, let's look at which activities are more likely to present a risk of a fall. Falls more frequently happen when an employee is carrying out activities such as loading or unloading a vehicle, sheeting or unsheeting a trailer, coupling or uncoupling trailer units, when cleaning, repairing or performing maintenance, or when checking or monitoring equipment on a vehicle. Reducing the likelihood of slips and trips in and around a vehicle can greatly reduce the chance of a fall occurring. As an employer, your main focus should be on minimizing the amount of time employees spend working at height on vehicles, and when they do need to be at height, to make conditions as safe as possible. This process starts right from designing the layout of your site and purchasing vehicles and equipment. Loading and unloading systems should make maximum use of mechanical lifting aids. If work does need to happen at height, make this as safe as possible. Have an inspection and maintenance system in place for all equipment and vehicles. Consider anti-slip coatings on critical areas. Make sure there is adequate lighting in depots and on vehicles. Provide appropriate vehicle washing facilities and foot scrapers. Above all, make sure that your employees are trained and informed on the safety systems that you have in place and on how to work safely on high vehicles, and never tolerate unsafe practices in the workplace. The operator also needs to take responsibility for following correct procedures when getting in and out of high vehicles. They should also be aware of factors which might stop them behaving safely. This could be tiredness, distractions, or even lighting conditions in the area of the vehicle. Sometimes a vehicle can be poorly designed with poor edge protection or slippery surfaces. In this case, you may need to fit additional protection to remain safe. As in any busy workplace, there are certain rules that should always be followed. Wear the personal protective equipment provided by your employer. Keep the vehicle load area and walkways tidy. This might mean cleaning up any spills or dirt and carefully storing any loose items. Report any defective, worn or damaged equipment to your supervisor. Always follow safe systems of work when loading and unloading. Workplace vehicles are large and heavy machines. Imagine a collision between one of these vehicles and a human being. It's pretty clear who would come off second best. Pedestrians in the vicinity of working vehicles are in a very vulnerable position. Protecting pedestrians from these vehicles is one of the most important safety steps in any place of work. To minimize the chance of injuries, the simple answer is to keep pedestrians and vehicles as far away from each other as possible. This should be the main guiding principle when laying out your site: how to keep vehicles and pedestrians as far apart as possible. When laying out a site, an employer must control pedestrians entering the site. Access gates, barriers or doors are ideal. Separate vehicle and pedestrian traffic, and identify where vehicles and pedestrians interact or meet so that you know the potential danger points. There are a number of physical things that should be put in place to heighten pedestrian safety in the workplace. Create defined routes for pedestrians. These should be away from vehicles. Put up barriers or guardrails at building entrances and exits, or at any place where pedestrians could potentially walk into a vehicle's path. Clearly mark pedestrian routes. Remember, people will normally take the shortest route between 2 points, so build this into your planning. Provide separate building entrances for vehicles and pedestrians. Install vision panels on all doors. Clearly mark any crossing points. Let everyone know who has priority. Install warning signs and traffic management signs. If pedestrian routes take them past warehouse racking, install protection systems to prevent injury from any falling items. Give pedestrians high visibility clothing. Make sure the workplace is well lit. As with all safety plans, the key is enforcement. You must be rigorous in implementing this plan. Create no-go areas and make sure the rule is followed. Pay particular attention to visitors to your site. They will not be familiar with your workplace and may not have the same commitment to safety as your own trained staff. Visitors should be accompanied at all times until they are familiar with your premises, your traffic management system, and your safe systems of work. It might be a good idea to limit access to vehicles when there are a lot of pedestrians about, such as at break times or at the start and end of shifts. Encourage slow driving speeds on your site. Will your workplace have children or elderly visitors? Particular care must be taken to manage these groups. If you find yourself on a site with moving vehicles, it's a good idea to follow these rules. Always report to the workplace reception or person in charge. Wear high visibility clothing when working near vehicles. Follow the signs and the road markings. They are there for a reason. Do not walk beside moving vehicles. When approaching a vehicle, wait until the driver acknowledges your presence. Never walk behind a reversing vehicle. The larger the vehicle, the bigger the blind spot. Above all, keep a safe distance from moving vehicles. A reversing vehicle can be extremely dangerous. Even though the vehicle is usually traveling at low speeds, the driver is at a severe disadvantage. He or she can rarely have a clear view of what is behind their vehicle. Because of the size of many workplace vehicles, the dangers when a vehicle has to reverse in the workplace are severe. For this reason, the issue of vehicles reversing in your workplace has to be carefully managed. Any assessment of workplace safety should include an analysis of reversing vehicles. How can vehicles reversing be minimized? And when it does occur, how to manage it safely? When laying out your workplace, look at what vehicle maneuvers are necessary. Look at every occasion when a vehicle will have to reverse in your workplace and ask yourself, is there a way to eliminate this? One-way systems, drive-through loading and unloading systems, turntables can all be used to radically cut down on the number of times vehicles must reverse on your premises. That will make your workplace safer for all. Of course, there are times when it is not possible to avoid the need to reverse. When this happens, do your utmost to plan the reversing area. Talk to the drivers and the supervisors in the area. Learn from previous incidents or near misses. What can be done better? One simple way to make the reversing vehicle a safer one is to remove pedestrians from the area. Create a no-go area so that the driver is confident they can reverse safely. Design the reversing space so that there is enough room to reverse comfortably. Pay attention to the layout of the reversing area. Lighting, signage, markings, and even mirrors can be used to make the driver's challenge a simpler one. Lay out a simple and easy route for the vehicle to reverse. Use any technical aids to make the driver's task easier. Use the best system to warn people that the vehicle is reversing. Make sure any driver on your site is made familiar with the procedures you have laid down for reversing. You may also need to train other staff and visitors on how to behave around reversing vehicles. As a driver, you should be conscious of pedestrians at all times. Reversing should be done as slowly as possible. Use whatever aids you have been provided with. Keep your vehicle in good repair. Keep your mirrors in their optimum alignment. Report any defects or malfunctions in any of your equipment. Make suggestions to a person in charge on how the layout of the site could be improved to help you. If you are reversing to park, reversing into a parking space is safer than reversing out of it. You may use a person outside the vehicle to assist in the reversing process. This should only be a last resort. The person must be trained to do this job. They should always wear high visibility clothing. They should stay in the driver's view at all times. They should use a system of signaling which is agreed and practiced with the driver beforehand. If you find yourself in an area where vehicles are reversing, remember to follow the rules for the location you are at. Never stand or walk behind a reversing vehicle. Remember that vehicles have blind spots. Keep out of restricted areas. Always wear high visibility clothing. Report any weaknesses in the safety system to a supervisor.
That sound you almost don't notice anymore is coming from a vehicle weighing 30 tons. That's roughly the same as 6 fully grown African elephants. It could crush and kill you in an instant. Don't say you didn't see it coming. Last year, vehicles were the single biggest cause of death and injury in the workplace. As a business owner or manager, you're responsible. For advice on managing vehicle safety in your workplace, visit vehiclesatwork.ie.
These load securing information videos have been developed to help raise awareness of the need to adopt safe load securing practice. Our aim is to improve transport safety and compliance with the relevant load securing laws and standards. These information videos provide clear, practical information on how to achieve safe load securing practices in the workplace. The information is aimed at anyone who transports loads in any type of vehicle for work purposes. These videos will outline the main considerations for safe load securing, and they will help you understand and implement good load securing practice. The term load means any objects, tools, equipment, goods or cargo. Load securing is a term used to cover load restraint and load containment. Load restraint means preventing the movement of the load in any direction in relation to the vehicle load platform. Load containment means preventing goods falling from the vehicle. Any load on or in a vehicle that is not secured to the load bed will tend to move every time a vehicle changes speed or direction. Loads can shift even at low speeds. The weight of the load cannot be relied upon to hold a load in place. Therefore, loads must be secured so that they are unlikely to shift, fall, be dislodged or blown from the vehicle, both during the journey and when the vehicle is being unloaded. Inadequate load securing poses many potential dangers. Unsafe loads have cost millions of euro in damaged goods, damaged vehicles, damaged reputation and lost work time. People are injured due to accidents that happen during loading, unloading and load shifting. It makes sense that proper load securing should be seen as a high priority for everyone who moves goods of any description. Harm to people, to goods and vehicles can be prevented by following safe systems of work that result in properly stowed, contained and restrained loads. A safe system of load securing will involve the following: suitable vehicle, suitable means of containment, suitable load configuration and suitable load restraint. Participants in the transport chain need to have clear, planned procedures for loading, unloading, load containment and securing. Safe load securing begins and ends in the workplace. Load securing is covered specifically by road traffic legislation, which requires that loads carried by vehicles are properly secured at all times so that no danger is liable to be caused. It is an offence for a vehicle to be overloaded or to discharge material onto a public road. Occupational health and safety legislation is also applicable. The law states that employers must make sure that systems of work are planned, performed and monitored for securing and transporting loads. Responsibilities for load securing risk management need to be clearly defined at work. Load securing is not the sole responsibility of the vehicle driver. Everyone involved from planning the load through to final unloading has a role to play in making sure the loads are loaded, unloaded, secured and transported safely. The law also requires that employers cooperate, so where several parties are involved in ensuring the safe transport of a load, there should be adequate coordination and cooperation between the parties and clear responsibilities laid down. On the road, the driver is responsible for the load, so the driver should know how the vehicle has been loaded and how the load is secured. It is important that you know and understand your legal duties and responsibilities and apply safe load securing practices for all loads transported. Everyone involved in the transportation of loads across national borders need to comply with the relevant EU laws and standards that apply to load securing across the European Union. Every organisation is required by law to protect people's safety, health and welfare at work, and it also makes good business sense to do so. For further information, log on to www.loadsafe.ie. As we've seen in video 1, the main principle to remember is that the load should be considered as an immovable part of the vehicle, and it follows that the design and construction of the vehicle and its bodywork should be suitable for the load that it is going to carry. Transport services need many different kinds of vehicle body structures. These are also called superstructures. An open flat structure has no walls, usually only a headboard. Depending on the manufacturer's specification, the headboard can be used for blocking. And the load securing arrangements that have to be supplemented by other blocking with wooden battens, bars and braces, or with lashings. The box-type superstructure can be loaded from either rear or side doors, or sometimes both. There are restrictions as to the maximum load that the sidewalls must withstand. In the cover stake structure, the walls have a rigid part and a lightly built part. Typically, the lightly built part is made using laths. The walls are designed to withstand specified loads, so it is important to check the rating. Curtain siders are common types of superstructures that are easy to load and unload. As a general rule, goods carried within curtain-sided vehicles should be secured as if they were being carried on a flat, open-bed vehicle. If the loading configuration or its securing would cause concern on an open vehicle, then it should be considered equally unacceptable for a curtain-sided vehicle. Unless they are purposely designed according to standard EN 12642-XL, the curtains of curtain-sided vehicles must be considered as part of any load restraint system. An XL-rated curtain must be used on an XL-rated trailer, otherwise no extra restraint benefit can be provided. When adequately constructed, the structure of the vehicle and components such as headboard, end walls and sidewalls will provide some restraint to movement of the load. The strength of the body structure on a vehicle should be based on standard EN 12642 or equivalent requirements. It should be noted that the laws in different countries might have additional restrictions on how much of the load weight can be blocked by the vehicle body. The load capability should be clearly marked on the vehicle. Before the vehicle is loaded, it should be checked to ensure that its load platform, bodywork and any load securing equipment are in safe and serviceable condition. When the load is transported in a vehicle with a headboard with either no rated strength or when it is not stowed tightly against the headboard, then the whole load weight has to be secured against forward movement by lashings. When loads are blocked against the headboard, the strength of the headboard can be used to reduce the number of lashings needed to secure the load. When the load is transported in a vehicle with a rear wall with no strength or when it is not stowed tightly against the rear wall, then the whole load weight has to be secured against backward movement by lashings. When the load is transported in a transport unit without strong sides, the whole load weight has to be secured against sideways movements by lashings. If the vehicle has rigid walls, as in a container, blocking against them is a very good option. When doors are designed to provide a defined blocking resistance, the doors may be considered as a block, provided the load is stowed to avoid impact to the doors and to prevent the load from falling out when the doors are opened. Stanchions should provide transverse blocking against roll forces coming from heavy loads, such as precast concrete, and cylindrical loads, such as steel pipes. Lashing points should have a design strength and be fitted in accordance with requirements of EN 12640. Lashing point ratings should be stated on the lashing point, trailer structure, or documentation. Continuous lashing anchorage bars are preferable. Rope hooks are not designed to be used as lashing points to secure loads. ISO containers have their own ISO-rated tolerance levels for various forces acting on the end walls and sidewalls. They are designed to be carried on trailers with twist locks. The load securing method in different vehicles depends on the type of load being transported. In the next video, we'll look at various load securing principles. For further information, go to www.loadsafe.ie. There are many factors that affect load securing. As we saw in the last video, the vehicle structure will determine a great deal how load securing has to be done. Now let's look at the basic principles of loading and load securing. Before any loading, unloading or securing of cargo begins, vehicles should be braked, stabilized and immobilized as appropriate to prevent unsafe or unexpected movement. Loading and unloading should be carried out so that, as far as possible, the weight of the load is spread evenly across the vehicle or trailer at all times to prevent instability. Make sure that the load is distributed in such a way that the center of gravity of the total load lies as low and as centered as possible. The load should be secured and arranged in a manner that prevents sliding or toppling, and ensure that the load securing arrangements do not damage the goods being transported. When loading the vehicle, sufficient load securing equipment should be available and must be in good condition. Wherever possible, use additional equipment which supports the load securing, such as friction mats, walking boards, straps and edge beams. The load should be placed against the headboard if possible, or if there is a gap, that an intermediate bulkhead is fitted, or blocking or dunnage is used to fill the gap to prevent the load moving forward. Check the load securing equipment is able to withstand the conditions it will encounter during the journey. Make sure that the vehicle and blocking equipment manufacturer's recommendations are followed. In road transport, loads in one vehicle may need to be distributed to many customers. However, the optimal way of loading the cargo for load securing might not be in the order of distribution. This causes a problem because items in the cargo should be in a certain order to make the distribution efficient, and whatever system is used, it must not create an additional risk for people who have to use it. Different loads will require different methods of securing. However, what works for one type of load will not necessarily work for another type. Each load has different characteristics that affect how it can be secured. Weight is one of the most important things to know about the load. Without this knowledge, safe load securing is not possible. For example, the amount of lashing devices depends heavily on the weight of the load. Shape determines the orientation of the load. Durability determines what kind of lashing and blocking methods can be used. If the transported products are in soft packages, they can't be lashed with chains or webbings. You may need to consider load restraining tarpaulins, for example. Dimensions determine how the load can be positioned into the vehicle while loading, and also what kind of securing methods can be used. For example, with flat loads, top-over lashings can't be used effectively. Sharp edges may damage or break lashing devices or other loads. Corner protection can be used to prevent damage to lashing devices and also loads. Carry out a risk assessment and select the safest and most appropriate method of securing the load. If required, consult the vehicle manufacturer, trade industry bodies, and suppliers of proprietary load securing systems, who will be able to provide advice. If sufficient load securing equipment is not available, then the load cannot be transported. For more information, go to the LoadSafe website, www.loadsafe.ie. Load securing methods can be divided into three different types: blocking, locking, and lashing. Blocking means that the load is in close contact to the fixed structures or fixtures on the vehicle. These may be in the form of headboards, sideboards, sidewalls, stanchion, or other devices. Always start with different blocking methods. Blocking can be arranged in forward direction in many different ways. Blocking is the primary and most efficient method of load securing in road transport because it can eliminate sliding and tipping. In practice, it's difficult to achieve an absolute tight fit against blocking devices, and a small clearance usually remains. Gaps must be kept to a minimum, especially those to the headboard. The load should be blocked against the headboard either directly or by the use of filler material in between. Different vehicles have different characteristics concerning how much of the weight of the load can be blocked against headboards and sideboards. Locking is a method where the load is securely attached to the vehicle structure. Containers and swap bodies are locked on the chassis of the vehicle with a twist lock mechanism. In most cases, twist locks are fitted to the vehicle during manufacture. Lashing can be done with webbings, chains, and wire rope. The purpose of lashing is to tie load units together, or to keep the load in contact with the load platform or any blocking device. Lashings should be positioned so that they are in contact only with the cargo to be secured and/or the securing points. They should not be bent over flexible items such as drop sides. Only one lashing should be attached to one securing point, unless they are rated accordingly. The standard EN 12195-1 outlines two lashing methods: frictional lashing and direct lashing. Top-over lashing is a method of frictional lashing. Top-over lashing involves positioning lashings over the top of the load in order to prevent the load units from tipping or sliding. Top-over lashing is used to press the load towards the vehicle load bed and helps keep the load in place. Top-over lashing is most effective when the angle between the loading platform and the upright part of the lashing is 90 degrees. If the load unit requires more than one lashing, they should be evenly distributed over the length of the load unit. The direct lashing category includes loop lashing, spring lashing, straight and cross lashing. In loop and spring lashing, the lashing device is connected directly only on the load carrier. In loop lashing, the load is lashed to one side of the vehicle body by a loop around the load unit. Loop lashings must be used in pairs to prevent the cargo from tipping over and from sliding. To prevent the load unit from moving in a longitudinal direction, loop lashing must be combined with blocking, or two pairs of loop lashings will be required. Spring lashing is another kind of direct lashing without any attachment points to the load unit. Spring lashing may be in the form of a single web lashing placed across the edge of a load unit and lashed by means of a slope lashing on each side. This is to prevent a load layer from tipping or sliding in a longitudinal direction, but it is also usable in transverse direction as well. In straight and cross lashing, the lashing device is connected directly both on the load carrier and on the load itself. If the load unit is equipped with attachment points that are as strong as the lashing device to be used, then it is possible to lash directly between these load attachment points and the securing points on the vehicle. This type of lashing is used primarily on larger machinery or heavy loads that have proper attachment points. This lashing method prevents both sliding and tipping. Straight lashing can be used to prevent movement only in forward and backward directions. Other means are needed for sideways lashing. For example, in vehicle transport, the trailer might have wheel pockets that block sideways movement. If lashings are put crossways, cross lashing, it is very important that the cross occurs over the center of gravity of the load. Otherwise, the lashing could cause the load unit to tip over. Again, the main principle to remember is that the load should be considered as an immovable part of the vehicle. The load securing method in different vehicles depends on the type of load being transported. In the next video, we'll look at various load restraint equipment. For more information, go to the LoadSafe website, www.loadsafe.ie. The choice of the most appropriate means of securing a load to a vehicle will depend on the type and composition of the load to be carried and the vehicle itself. Vehicle operators should equip the vehicle with appropriate load securing equipment for the types of load usually carried. If mixed loads are carried, a number of types of securing equipment should be available. Webbing straps are the most commonly used load securing equipment. Webbing straps are easy to use and versatile, so many kinds of loads can be secured by them. Webbing straps are made from fiber, so they can be easily damaged. Also, they stretch under strain, so they need to be checked and retightened during transport. Webbing straps are required to be made according to standard EN 12195-2, except webbings that are used only once. This standard EN 12195-2 lays down the requirements for webbing straps. The manufacturer must attach a specific label outlining these properties to the webbing strap before sale. Chains are typically used when transporting heavy loads like plant and machinery. Under a normal load, the chain lashing does not stretch as much as the webbing strap. Also, the chain is unlikely to get damaged when securing loads with sharp edges. Strong packing or edge protectors should be used on corners or sharp edges to prevent damage to the chains and to increase the radius around which they bend, increasing their effective strength. Effective blocking can be achieved by stowing items or individual load units against the headboard and sidewalls, or putting fixtures between the individual load units, or building different kinds of structures or fixtures against the loads. Dunnage or packing can be put between the individual loads to assist blocking. Wedges made of plastic or wood can be used to block cylindrical type loads which may roll. The use of friction matting can be useful. The force of friction on a load will prevent the load from moving from the load deck. However, friction is never enough to secure a load that is moving. Friction can be increased with anti-slip matting. This material can be used under load items and the load bed and between individual load items. Increased friction reduces the number of lashings needed to secure the load. Soft packages can be protected with a corner or edge protection device, which is used in top-over lashing arrangements. A suitable protection device can enable several load items to be combined together to lessen the amount of webbing straps needed. Integrated lashing systems incorporating a load cover are available, which enable soft or granular load items to be restrained together. Netting systems have also been developed to secure multiple load units. All equipment used for load securing should be regularly inspected for wear and damage. Webbing straps have a set working life. This can be shortened if they are used daily to secure heavy loads or otherwise misused. Before using a webbing strap, check its condition. Do not use a webbing strap if you notice fraying of the strands, cuts and abrasions, damage by contamination by chemicals, oils, abrasives, dusts and greases. Or if any part has got a permanent deformation, such as a bent link on a chain or a bent part on the tensioner for a web lashing. You should always follow the manufacturer's recommendations regarding the correct use, inspection and discard criteria for webbing straps. Do not use a chain if you notice cracks in the surface, any visual deformation and wear that's more than 10% of the diameter. Again, the main principle to remember is that the load restraint equipment needs to be carefully chosen to suit the load and vehicle, used correctly and kept in good serviceable condition at all times. In the next video, we'll look at driver considerations. You can get further information on this topic at www.loadsafe.ie. The consignor should plan how the load is going to be loaded onto each vehicle and secured for transport. The important thing to remember is regardless of who loaded the vehicle, what matters is that there is a system in place and everyone involved in loading and transport should follow it. Workplace procedures should clearly state the role of the driver in loading, securing and unloading operations. If the driver is not involved in loading, he or she must remain at a safe location away from the activity. The driver should be given a signed copy of the loading plan by the consignor detailing how the vehicle has been loaded, contained and secured. If drivers are involved in loading or unloading, they should sign the loading plan. Drivers must comply with basic safety requirements at all times. These basic safety requirements include the following. Drivers must wear personal protective equipment, PPE, provided by the employer. As a minimum, this should include proper safety footwear and high visibility clothing. This is essential when working near moving vehicles, whether on or off the road. Additional PPE may be needed depending on the work task and environment. Drivers should be familiar with the loading and unloading procedures for their own premises and for customer and supplier premises too. Drivers should report to the person in charge of a workplace for any relevant instructions before loading and unloading a vehicle. Drivers must know both the load capacity and the limitation of the vehicle being used so that the loading and unloading can be done correctly and safely. Also, equipment provided for loading and unloading must be compatible with the vehicle. On the road, the driver is responsible for the load carried on their vehicle. This applies to all vehicles and to all load types. While the employer and other personnel have their areas of responsibility, it is the driver who must be certain that the load is properly contained, restrained and secured so that it is not liable to be a danger during transit. Drivers must drive with due care and attention. Drivers must always use the prescribed vehicle routes and follow any other site rules, such as rules for parking, reversing or speed control. Drivers must drive at an appropriate speed for the road, traffic and weather conditions, and keep a safe distance from other vehicles. Drivers must park in designated parking places, and they should be mindful of doorways, walkways, disabled access, fire escapes, height restrictions, width clearance, physical obstructions, and other parked vehicles. Drivers must take sufficient time to complete work safely. Drivers should report any unsafe activities immediately to a supervisor or manager. Drivers should make sure that non-essential persons are kept clear from designated areas where reversing is taking place. Ideally, loading and unloading should be carried out in a designated area away from passing traffic, pedestrians, and others not involved in loading or unloading vehicles. Where this is not possible, risks to pedestrians and passing traffic must be minimized. Loading and unloading should only be carried out by trained authorized people, and only trained authorized persons should be permitted to access the vehicle load platform. For more information, visit our website www.loadsafe.ie. Journey management is about planning and carrying out the work so that the journey and any drops or collections take place in a safe manner and without incident. Because the driver is the one physically transporting the load to its destination, it is important that the driver is fully informed of his or her responsibilities regarding journey management too. So before the vehicle is loaded, check that its load platform, bodywork, and any load securing equipment are in sound and serviceable condition. Check the load securing regularly wherever possible during the journey. The first check should preferably be done after a few kilometers drive at a safe place to stop. In addition, the load should also be checked after heavy braking and any other sudden movement during the journey. Drive smoothly and adapt the vehicle's speed for the road, traffic and weather conditions so as to avoid sudden change of direction and heavy braking. If this advice is followed, then the forces exerted by the load will remain low and there shouldn't be any problems on the road. And after every loading and unloading activity, check the load for weight distribution and overloading before resuming the journey. As part of good journey management, drivers need to understand the potential risks around their work activities. They should take into account the following: risk of falling from the vehicle, risks from slips, trips and falls on or around the vehicle load platforms, risks from straps and other restraints springing back and hitting people, risks from being struck by vehicles, risks from loads falling off during loading or unloading and striking people, risks from loads moving on vehicles in transit and injuring drivers or other people. So in order to minimize these potential risks, reasonable steps to stay safe should be taken, such as make sure that training in the correct methods of load restraint and load securing has been received. Always follow safe loading and unloading instruction. Carry out regular checks of the load restraint equipment and vehicle load platform. Only use properly rated load restraint and load securing equipment and accessories. Don't allow unauthorized people access to the vehicle or load platform. Only trained personnel should be involved in the loading and unloading operations. Cooperate with everyone involved in loading and unloading operations. Before setting out on a journey, drivers should be able to answer the following questions about their load and their assignment. What have I got in the vehicle? How big is the load? How is the load arranged? What's it restrained with or contained in? What could cause possible harm and how? And what plans do I have in the event of an incident? So remember, as part of good journey management, drivers need to understand the potential risks around their work activities and take all reasonable steps to stay safe. Visit our website www.loadsafe.ie for more information.